With me now is retired Major General Scott Clancy, former Director of Operations for NORAD. Scott, this is interesting too. It's a 2-year anniversary of the attacks, and it's maybe just a slight hope. We heard U.S. President Donald Trump comment on this today. The two sides are talking for a second day in a row, trying to come up, and in particular, that 20-point plan that the president has proposed. What do you make of that on this 2-year anniversary?
Well, what I'm hearing out of the talks is that they're fragile but positive in terms of their momentum. And, my experience with diplomatic relations is any time that both sides are talking, that's going to be a good thing. There's a few sticking points. The timing of the hostage release and the timing of the withdrawal of Israeli Defense Forces, the role and the scope of the disarmament of Hamas, which, Hamas has not agreed to any real disarmament and still wants to involve itself in the long-term elements of the government there in Gaza. I think these are going to be the real sticking points. They're based on credible enforcement and trust. And there is no trust between either side in this. So they're trusting on these intermediate parties, of which Egypt, Saudi Arabia, Qatar are playing a significant role in balancing that trust.
Again, you mentioned it's a good thing that they're talking, but we've discussed these points at length too for not only a number of weeks but months in order to how we get to this point. If Hamas does not agree, let's say, to demilitarize, does the whole peace plan fall apart at that point, do you believe, or are there pockets where some of this might be able to move forward before the rest can?
Well, you asked a really great question, and I'm going to answer it a little bit differently. This isn't just two sides here. More and more, and as we reflect back on the last 2 years, on one side you have the Israeli Defense Forces conducting protracted military operations in Gaza, significant civilian collateral damage, the International Commission of Inquiry declaring genocide, and leaders which were allies of Israel, recognizing the Palestinian state. But on the other side, you see, the Muslim world categorically denouncing Hamas and calling for its dissolution. Hamas is less and less speaking for the Palestinian people. And now you see a real peace accord that has real longevity to be able to provide agency for the Palestinian people backed by the Muslim world. And Hamas is standing in its way. So, my prediction is as the people want peace, real peace, and they move away from the terrorist organization that is Hamas, you have a real chance to have long-lasting peace in Gaza.
And is there, not necessarily figures in particular, but as you watch that transition happen, and someone, from the Muslim world or otherwise being able to step up and step in order to take over some of that leadership at this point, from your understanding, at least at this point?
Well, so Egypt has, offered its agency in and around this. I think the Muslim world are going to step forward with trying to put in place the executive elements of the institutions that would have to be in place inside of Gaza to make sure its governance is there. The UN has put forward, Tony Blair as being a possible leader based upon his experience in and around the region. What I like about this is there's multiple international agencies that have credibility on both sides that would be willing to not only tackle the real security problems out here, but the other underlying and foundational issues that would guarantee the Palestinian state to have a real chance. So I am hopeful. I'm hopeful, especially because of the reactions of the Muslim world and how committed they are.
Retired Major General Scott Clancy, the former Director of Operations for NORAD. Thanks for this, Scott. Appreciate the insight.
Thank you.